If you've never heard of me and my channel, I have been running this YouTube channel for over 3 years now with weekly videos fully dedicated to the Japanese developer and publisher ATLUS. I run a podcast called the Demon Appreciation Podcast, which is all about ATLUS. And, of course, I have played through a ton of ATLUS games ever since I was in my young teenage days. Shin Megami Tensei, Persona, Devil Survivor, Catherine, I played a bunch of games, but I have never played one of ATLUS's biggest and longest running franchises, Etrian Odyssey. When ATLUS announced Etrian Odyssey Origins Collections for Nintendo Switch during the February 2023 Nintendo Direct, I was stoked and I knew this was finally my opportunity to try out this series. In today's spoiler-free review of Etrian Odyssey HD, you will get the point of view of a newcomer to the series who's hardcore into ATLUS and Japanese role-playing games. Before starting Etrian Odyssey, I figured I would enjoy the game because the music sounded great, the art direction seemed interesting, and the gameplay is turn-based. But I was a little on the fence about the map creation side of things. Etrian Odyssey is a traditional first-person dungeon crawler with a heavy emphasis on gameplay. After spending more than 50 hours into the original Etrian Odyssey on Nintendo Switch, I can finally say that I am addicted to Etrian Odyssey. Thank you for your patience, and here is my final review of the very first Etrian Odyssey game, which I played through with the Origins Collection on Nintendo Switch, but the game is also available on PC. Make sure you save 5% off using code DCJRPGs on 2game.com, link in the description down below. Etrian Odyssey HD is a Nintendo DS game which was remastered for Switch and PC in glorious HD. The elephant in the room needs to be addressed right away though. The Nintendo DS has two screens. The Switch and PC only have one. So how does the gameplay hold up, you'll ask? Well, I am glad to report that Etrian Odyssey works extremely well on one screen. As you can see in my video footage, you have your map and tools for map creation on one side of the screen, and you have your point of view on the other side of the screen. When playing portably on Switch, you have full touchscreen control, which makes map creation easier than when playing docked, where it's feasible, but it's definitely not the best time. Controls are as intuitive as they can be when docked on a one TV screen, but the game clearly is designed for two screens. But in my opinion, touch controls are absolutely the way to go if you are to play this remastered version of the game. Now you'll notice how I briefly mentioned map creation. That's right, you can completely draw the map by yourself in this game, but if you'd rather have a more traditional first-person dungeon crawler experience, like older Shin Megami Tensei games for example, you can simply toggle the auto map feature, which allows the game to draw the map for you as you explore. This is my preferred way to play the game, and it works very decently. The story of Etrian Odyssey is fairly simple. You are an adventurer of the town of Etria. You are tasked by the Ratahal with creating a guild of your own to explore the mysterious labyrinth in town called Yggdrasil. Not sure how it's pronounced, but yeah. Right at the beginning of the game, you will have access to a bunch of character classes to pick from to build a 5 characters party. All the classes are extremely different from one another, which makes for some very interesting strategy at times. Just like most ATLUS titles, Etrian Odyssey is a series known for its difficulty, but worry not because there are 3 different difficulty options to pick from. Playing on normal, I found the game to be just as hard enough to give me a challenge, but still have a very fun time. Your original guild though might not be the best composition for certain enemies or certain bosses, so changing your guild formation by recruiting new members every now and then and swapping them around with your own party members will totally be necessary. In typical RPG fashion, there is a lot of customization options in this game. All party members are able to level up and spend skill points to learn new skills or make already owned skills even more powerful. All characters are able to equip certain weapons and armor that varies from a class to another, which means that, for example, a Ronin will not be able to equip the same weapon or armor as a Troubadour, for example. Now, the best thing about Etrian Odyssey to me is the gameplay loop. The main goal of the game, as previously mentioned, is to explore the labyrinth, which is extremely big with tons of floor to go through, all of them varied in terms of visuals, in terms of enemies, and also resources. It is insanely addictive if you are a old school first-person dungeon crawler fan. Each floor of the labyrinth are designed differently, which keeps the game fresh from a floor to another. The game also strongly encourages exploration, with certain important items being hidden in one small corner of a specific floor. My favorite thing about the gameplay loop that I was always doing when exploring the labyrinth was this. I leave town, I head into the labyrinth, till my inventory is full of resources or my mana run up, then I use Rab with my alchemist to go back to town, then I sell my resources, buy more medics, sleep at the inn, and back into the labyrinth. This loop was done in 2 or 3 minutes tops, which made Etrian Odyssey the perfect pick up and play game portably for me. The combat is also super fun. As mentioned before, Etrian Odyssey is a turn-based RPG. Combat is fairly simple, enemies have strength and weaknesses, you have direct attacks, you have buffs and debuffs, as well as your typical healing spells depending on the class that you have in your party. The complexity of this combat really comes from the multiple classes that you can pick from and how varied they are from one another more than the actual combat itself. It's all about strategy. It is overall a very enjoyable experience from start to finish. The art direction of Etrian Odyssey works extremely well in full HD, which is really amazing when you think about it because of how old the game is. Enemy variety, I know I talked about it before, but it's a real thing, and all of the enemies looked original and pleasing. All the drawings are very different and the portraits for your enemies are clean looking. The characters themselves are also varied and original looking. What's great is every single class for your characters that you can recruit in your guild, they have multiple designs to pick from, which means that pretty much every one of you watching the review here today will probably end up with a different looking team than what mine looked like. The remaster version that I'm reviewing today is especially crisp looking. The character portraits are very crisp for a game from the Nintendo DS era. It's not always easy to bring back a dual screen game, yes, because of the dual screen functionalities, but also because of how those games looked. The resolution was extremely low back then, so seeing it on a big HD television, you have to put a lot of work into it for it to look good, and that's the case for Etrian Odyssey, which is great. You love to see it. I certainly have to give a huge shout out to Mr. Yuzo Koshiro, the composer of Etrian Odyssey. The soundtrack is phenomenal, with a bunch of tracks to keep it varied from start to finish. Mr. Koshiro also worked on other Sega soundtracks like the Shenmue soundtrack or even Streets of Rage. His talent is something else, and it really shows in this release. I'm already looking forward to playing more Etrian Odyssey titles just to hear some of his work. Etrian Odyssey was a little RPG that always seemed interesting to me, but I never really gave it a fair chance before playing it on Nintendo Switch this year. Now that I put over 50 hours into the original release of Etrian Odyssey, I can confidently say that I will be playing more Etrian Odyssey titles in the near future. If you are new to the channel, if you want more content on anything in terms of ATLUS SMT Persona, Metaphor Refantasio, Etrian Odyssey, make sure you subscribe, ring that notification bell, as well as I'm trying to be the #1 source of information for ATLUS news. And if you want more reviews for the Etrian Odyssey series, you can absolutely look forward to that, so make sure you are subscribed. Thank you so much for watching the review. If you enjoyed it, a quick thumbs up is always a big help. I hope you have a great day. Bye.